Imagine being completely alone on a rainy night, the wind howling outside, and the shadows inside your own home beginning to move. What if the silence suddenly breaks with the sound of footsteps where no one should be? A chilling presence watching you from the darkness, creeping closer with every heartbeat. Tonight, you're about to hear a terrifying true story that will grip you with fear and keep you awake long after the storm passes. Are you ready to face the nightmare lurking just beyond your door? Before we dive into this chilling tale, don't forget to follow and support this channel for more real scary stories that will haunt your nights. Stay with us, if you dare. It had been raining for 3 days straight. Emily Carter sat curled up on the couch, wrapped in a faded gray blanket that still smelled faintly like her old apartment in Seattle. The sound of the rain against the roof was steady, almost hypnotic. A dim floor lamp lit the corner of the living room, casting soft shadows across the walls. Her tablet screen glowed in her lap as she absent-mindedly sketched shapes that didn't mean anything. She lived alone. Had been for almost 2 years now. And while she usually liked the quiet, something about tonight felt different. The kind of stillness that made your ears strain for a sound. Any sound. The house was one of those older rentals tucked back from the main road, with warped wood floors and a basement that always smelled like damp concrete. But it was cheap, and the landlord mostly left her alone. It was just temporary, she always told herself. Just until work picked up again. The thunder rolled in the distance as the lights flickered, once, then again, before steadying. She sighed and glanced at her phone. Full charge. She figured the storm might knock the power out eventually, but she'd be fine. She had candles somewhere. Just as she turned her eyes back to the sketch, her phone vibrated. A notification from the security app. Motion detected, basement window. Emily's breath caught. She sat still, the hum of tension rising in her chest. The basement window? The small one near the back garden, barely visible from the kitchen. She tapped into the camera feed. For a second, the screen was black. Then static. Then, there. A pale blur. Close to the lens. A human face. Eyes wide, unmoving. Watching. Then the feed glitched out. She blinked, her thumb hovering over the screen. Rain distorted the image, and she told herself it could have been anything. A reflection. A water droplet. But the eyes. She swore she saw eyes. Emily stood, her legs stiff from sitting too long. She walked slowly to the kitchen, pausing by the door that led down to the basement. The wooden door was shut tight. She turned the bolt lock and backed away. She didn't check the window. She didn't go outside. She just locked the door. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been watching. Or maybe still was. The wind outside had picked up. Rain lashed against the windows, loud enough now that it nearly drowned out the soft hum of the refrigerator. Emily moved through the hallway with careful steps, her hand brushing the wall like she needed something solid to hold on to. She didn't like the feeling in her stomach. That cold, crawling sense that something was off. The kind of feeling you get when you're walking alone at night and hear footsteps behind you, but when you turn, there's no one there. She tried to distract herself. Boiled water. Made a fresh mug of chamomile tea. Sat back on the couch and turned the TV on, just loud enough to make her feel less alone. A sitcom played. Laugh track. People pretending to be happy in front of a live studio audience. She didn't laugh. The phone buzzed again. Camera offline, basement window. Her heart dropped. She opened the app again. No feed. Just static. The other cameras around the property were still active. Front door. Backyard. Driveway. But the basement window camera, completely dead. She stared at the screen for a long time, her reflection faint in the black glass. Then she put the phone down and took a long sip of tea, trying to calm the jitter in her chest. That's when she heard it. A sound beneath the floorboards. A soft, dull thump, like something heavy had landed on concrete. Then a scraping noise, low and dragging. She froze, mug halfway to her lips. The basement. It had to be the basement. No one should be down there. She hadn't been down herself in weeks. Just old boxes, holiday decorations, and a couple suitcases she hadn't unpacked since the move. She stood up slowly and walked to the basement door again. She placed her ear gently against the wood. Silence. Then, another thump. Louder this time. Closer. She backed away. Her phone buzzed again. This time, no camera feed. No notification. Just a message from an unknown number. No name. No profile picture. It read, "Why did you lock the door?" Emily stared at the screen. She didn't move. Didn't blink. And then, from the other side of the basement door, 3 knocks. Measured. Calm. Right at ear level. Emily stood frozen in the dim hallway, her eyes fixed on the basement door. The knocks had stopped, but something worse had taken their place. Silence. A silence so dense it rang in her ears. She clutched her phone in both hands, heart thudding so hard she thought she might drop it. She checked the message again. "Why did you lock the door?" The number was unfamiliar. Just a string of digits. She tried to call it back, but it went straight to voicemail. No ring. No tone. Nothing. She turned and went into the kitchen, grabbing the biggest knife from the drawer. It felt ridiculous, but not as ridiculous as facing whatever was downstairs empty-handed. Her other hand hovered over her phone's screen, thumb ready to dial 911, though she hadn't yet. Not yet. Instead, she walked to the back door and flipped on the porch light. It cast a weak, yellow beam into the storm. The rain made everything shimmer and dance, but she forced herself to step outside barefoot, her sweater soaking up water as she crept around the side of the house toward the basement window. There it was. Just above ground level. The glass looked foggy from the rain, but it wasn't broken. No signs of tampering. No footprints in the mud. Just mud. Just rain. But then her eyes caught something. Pressed against the inside of the glass, from the inside, was a handprint. Not old. Fresh. Smudged. Right in the center of the window pane. She backed away slowly, breath catching in her throat. She wanted to scream but couldn't. She stepped back into the house, locked the door, and turned every light in the place on. Kitchen. Hallway. Living room. Bedroom. Her reflection followed her everywhere. She called the landlord, but it went to voicemail. She called the non-emergency line for the local police, left a message. They'd probably show up tomorrow, ask her if she imagined it, and move on. She went upstairs and pulled the attic ladder down, just in case she needed to hide. It was the only place with a lock on the inside. But when she climbed up and pulled the attic door shut behind her, the silence changed. She heard it again. Not a knock. Not footsteps. This time it was breathing. Soft. Ragged. Coming from the floorboards beneath her. From directly below the attic entrance. Emily didn't dare move. She crouched in the attic, barely able to see in the pitch dark. The only light came from her phone screen, and she kept it dimmed to the lowest setting, the soft blue glow just enough to show the wooden beams and dusty boxes around her. The breathing was still there. Slow. Uneven. Sometimes pausing for a few seconds, like whoever it was down there was listening. Then it would start again. Louder. Closer. Emily backed into the farthest corner of the attic, trying to make her body small. The floor creaked under her shifting weight, and the breathing immediately stopped. Dead quiet. Then, a sudden bang against the attic door. Not a knock. A fist. Hard. 1, 2, 3 times. She squeezed the knife handle tighter, her palms slick with sweat. She could feel her heart beating in her throat. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "I'm not down there anymore." Her blood ran cold. She didn't know whether to scream or throw the phone across the attic. She forced herself to reply with shaking thumbs. "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared. Typing. Then gone. Then typing again. Finally, the reply came. I'm closer than you think. Suddenly, the attic door creaked. Slowly. A few inches. Then it stopped. Someone was pulling on the ladder from below. Emily didn't wait. She shoved one of the old boxes over the attic entrance, then another. Old books. Photo albums. Anything with weight. Her body moved on instinct now, stacking everything she could find over the square of light in the floor. The ladder creaked again. Then footsteps. Heavy, booted footsteps pacing the hallway below. Back and forth. Then up the stairs to the second floor. Right outside the attic. She held her breath as the handle of the attic door jiggled. Soft at first. Then harder. Then silence again. No more breathing. No more footsteps. Just the sound of the storm outside and the occasional groan of the old house settling. Then she heard her bedroom door open. And she realized. She had left her closet door wide open. And the attic was directly above it. Emily didn't blink. She was listening for movement, any hint of direction. But the house had fallen into that kind of quiet that presses on your eardrums, where even your heartbeat sounds too loud. She stayed crouched behind the boxes, her back against the slanted roof of the attic, trying not to hyperventilate. Her phone buzzed again. This time, no text. A photo. She opened it with trembling fingers. It was her bedroom. Taken from inside the closet. You could see the edge of her unmade bed, the nightstand, and the open door leading into the hallway. She hadn't seen anyone go in there, but someone was already inside when she fled to the attic. She felt like throwing up. Her breath caught as the attic floor creaked beneath her. Just the smallest shift of weight. Then silence again. Her phone vibrated once more. Another message. I watched you sleep last night. You talk in your sleep. Emily's vision blurred for a second. Panic did that sometimes. Made everything go soft around the edges, like the world was turning to static. She shut her eyes tight and forced herself to breathe. In. Out. When she opened them, she noticed something strange in the attic. A small wooden panel in the far corner. Half covered by an old rug and sealed with rusted nails. It looked like an access hatch, maybe into the wall, or into the narrow crawlspace that lined the upper part of the house. She didn't think. She just moved. Shoved boxes aside. Yanked the rug back. Her hands worked at the nails, pulling them loose one by one with the edge of the knife. Her fingers bled. She didn't care. Behind the panel, darkness. And a narrow tunnel of dust and cobwebs leading deeper into the structure of the house. Another photo came through on her phone. This one was of the attic door. The boxes she'd stacked now toppled over. She didn't have time to think. She crawled inside the wall. Behind her, the attic door creaked open. And a voice followed her into the crawlspace. Calm. Male. Just above a whisper. There you are. Emily crawled forward, hands scraping along splintered wood and ancient insulation. The narrow space inside the wall pressed in on her from all sides, too low to sit up, too tight to turn around. Her breathing came in fast, shallow bursts, her phone clenched between her teeth to light the way ahead. Behind her, something was moving, dragging against the wood. A slow, steady shuffle, like boots sliding across dust and nails. And every few seconds, a voice. That same low whisper. You're making this harder than it has to be. She didn't reply. She just kept crawling. The crawlspace twisted and turned like a ribcage, the beams warped with age. Emily had no idea where it led, if anywhere, but she couldn't go back. Every time she paused to catch her breath, she could hear him. Closer. Always closer. She passed an old vent shaft and peeked through. It looked down into her kitchen. He was in there now. She saw the top of his head, dark, wet hair slicked back like he'd just come in from the rain. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if he knew she could see him. His hands brushed over the countertops. He opened the fridge. Closed it. Picked up the mug of tea she had abandoned. Then he looked up. Straight into the vent. She yanked her head back, heart hammering against her ribs. Another message. She didn't want to look, but she did. Don't stop moving. She shoved herself forward, elbows screaming from the effort. The crawl space narrowed again. A tight, sloping descent. She slid into it, arms outstretched, scraping down to where the boards turned soft and damp beneath her. She could smell mold now. Mildew. Earth. It was leading her toward the basement. Somewhere ahead, she heard the faintest noise. A humming. Mechanical. The backup generator. She remembered now. The landlord had said the house had an old service hatch leading from the crawl space to the utility room in the basement. Hidden behind the shelves. No one used it anymore. She just had to get there. Behind her, the shuffle quickened. And then, the sound of something metallic. Like a knife scraping against the wall studs. She didn't scream. She just kept crawling, heart pounding so loud she thought it might give her away. Emily dropped down from the crawl space into the utility room, her knees hitting the cold cement floor with a dull crack. For a moment, she just lay there, gasping, covered in dust and cobwebs, listening for the sound of movement above. But it was quiet. Too quiet. The only sound came from the generator in the corner, its low mechanical hum vibrating through the floor. She stood, legs shaking, and looked around. This part of the basement felt different. The air was heavy, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping slowly into buckets that must have been placed there decades ago. But what drew her attention was the wall opposite the shelves. It looked wrong. There was a seam, barely visible, outlining a door-shaped cut in the concrete. No knob. No handle. Just a faint outline. She stepped closer. There, in the center of the wall, a small rectangular panel. The size of a light switch. She hesitated, then pressed it. Click. The wall shifted. With a low mechanical groan, it cracked open an inch, then slowly creaked inward. A rush of cold, stale air blew into the room. Emily grabbed a wrench from the shelf beside her and pushed the hidden door open the rest of the way. Inside was a small, windowless room. Completely dark except for a single, flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling by a bare wire. The light swayed slightly, casting long, shifting shadows on the concrete walls. And in the center of the room, a chair. A simple metal chair. With leather straps bolted into the armrests and legs. Her skin crawled. In the corner sat a stack of VHS tapes. A rusty camcorder on a tripod. The smell in the room was sharp and metallic, and something told her not to look too closely at the dark stains on the floor. She stepped back slowly. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't want to look. But she did. A live image. Of her. Standing in that hidden room. From the perspective of the tripod camera. She turned to the camcorder. It wasn't even on. The lens was cracked. Dead. And the photo had been taken just seconds ago. She wasn't alone down there. Emily ran. She didn't think, just turned and bolted from the hidden room, slamming the concrete door shut behind her. The sound echoed through the basement, followed by the low hum of the generator and her own gasping breaths. She dropped the wrench and sprinted up the basement stairs. But when she reached the top and grabbed the doorknob, it didn't turn. She twisted it harder. Still locked. She pounded on the door, screaming now, fists bruising against the thick wood. "Let me out!" she shouted, over and over. No response. No sound. She backed down a step. Then another. Her phone buzzed again. A new message. "You missed the real door." Her hands trembled as she typed. "What do you want?" This time, no reply. Just another photo. This one wasn't blurry or rushed. It was high quality. Framed. Focused. It showed her sleeping in her bed. The lighting was soft, warm. Like it had been taken from someone standing in the corner of her room. Watching. Waiting. And on her nightstand, next to the lamp, sat something she hadn't noticed before. A small black remote. She didn't own it. Her stomach twisted. The message bubble appeared again. You let me in, remember? She was shaking uncontrollably now. Her eyes scanned the basement. The pipes. The walls. The stains. The fake room with the chair. There was something deeper here. Something that hadn't been touched in years. She went back down. This time, she moved behind the generator, where a half-rotted wooden board jutted from the floor. It didn't match the concrete. She dropped to her knees and pulled at it. The board lifted with a hollow creak. And beneath it, a ladder, descending into complete darkness. She hesitated only a second, then climbed down, the air growing colder with every rung. The wooden ladder groaned under her weight, and the smell, damp rot, rust, something else, grew stronger. At the bottom was dirt. Packed earth. A narrow tunnel with wooden beams overhead. The kind you'd see in old mining shafts. She turned on her phone's flashlight. Something had been living down here. She saw a tattered sleeping bag. Empty cans. A set of keys. A crumpled fast food wrapper. And scrawled on the tunnel wall in black marker. She still doesn't know she's not alone. Emily spun around. Behind her, just beyond the edge of the light. Footsteps. The footsteps stopped the second Emily turned. But she knew, without a doubt, someone was down there with her. The flashlight from her phone quivered in her grip, casting jagged shadows along the narrow dirt tunnel. The deeper she walked, the more unnatural it all began to feel. Like this place hadn't been dug for storage. Or plumbing. Or anything normal. It felt like a lair. The wooden beams overhead were splintered and bowed. The walls were lined with hooks. Dozens of them. Empty. Except for one. A small red ribbon. Exactly like the one Emily used to tie back her hair. Her mind reeled. She hadn't worn that in months. Not since. She didn't want to remember. The tunnel opened into a low, wide chamber. A single bulb flickered overhead, hanging from exposed wires stapled into the dirt ceiling. The room was colder than the rest of the basement, damp and wrong. All along the walls were photos. Hundreds of them. Every single one was of her. Sleeping. Cooking. Brushing her teeth. Reading. Laughing. From every angle. Some dated years back, she saw herself wearing clothes she'd thrown out long ago. In apartments she hadn't lived in since college. Even a photo from her grandmother's porch, before she passed. All this time. He had been following her longer than she could have imagined. Her phone buzzed in her hand. Another message. I'm close now. She turned around, ready to run, but the tunnel behind her was pitch black. The light from her phone barely reached the entrance anymore. She stepped backward toward the wall, breath catching. And then she heard it. The sound of breathing. Not hers. Slow, steady, calm. Just inches away. She lifted her phone. Its light caught a face. Not masked. Not covered. Just a pale, ordinary man with a crooked smile and wide, unblinking eyes. He didn't lunge. He didn't speak. He just stared at her like he was seeing a painting he'd waited his whole life to find. Emily raised her phone, but it was too late. His hand was already on her wrist. Emily's breath hitched as his grip tightened. Panic surged through her veins, but her mind fought to stay sharp. She yanked her arm, struggling to break free, but his hold was unrelenting, cold, and strong like iron. Her phone slipped from her fingers and clattered against the dirt floor, the screen shattering into a spiderweb of cracks. The faint light died. Darkness swallowed her whole. A whisper brushed against her ear, soft and chilling. You can't run from what you invited in. The voice was close. Too close. Her heart thundered as she scrambled backward, knees scraping on the cold dirt. Her hands fumbled blindly, seeking anything to defend herself. Her fingers closed around a jagged piece of metal, a rusted nail pulled from the wooden beams. She swung it wildly, catching his wrist. He hissed and loosened his grip for a split second. Emily took it. She scrambled to her feet and bolted toward the ladder. Behind her, footsteps crashed, chasing. She climbed faster than she thought possible, hands gripping the wooden rungs until they bled. Bursting into the basement, she slammed the hatch shut and threw the heavy board back into place. Her chest burned. Sweat dripped down her face. Her phone buzzed one last time. Hands shaking, she picked it up and opened the screen. One message. "You'll never be alone again." Emily stared at the glowing words, the storm raging outside echoing the terror inside. And somewhere, deep beneath the house, the darkness waited.